Hello and welcome back to another Writerly Witterings with me, Michael Jex, the tea drinking author who's just finished a cup of tea, so it's too late. What have I got today? Well, I thought it would be quite fun to look at the latest in the Dominant Industries lineup that I was sent just around Christmas. So I'm going to be looking at Lungo, which is a strange name, but rather a nice ink. So I'm going to have a look at that, do a writing sample, have a talk a little bit about how it runs through with the pen. And then I've also been sent a delightful new notebook by Dave McClure. And it's a notebook and two pens. They're ballpoint pens, so I'll apologise in advance. I'm going to have that at the end of the video just for those people who are interested. But these are great because they're erasable ballpoint pens. And then I also want to see how good this notebook is with a fountain pen. Ooh. So I got all that excitement. Now I'll just say it and get it out of the way now. Don't forget, if you haven't already done it, please subscribe, because it means I get more people watching the videos. That's nice. And then like it, because that has the same impact. And if you are so inclined, you could tell your friends about it too, just in case a few of them are interested in fountain pens, inks and papers and all that kind of thing. I've also got to say a big thank you to Dave McClure for sending me through this notebook and pens, and thanks to all the other people who send things through periodically. I'm now in the embarrassing situation of having a vast selection of stationery sent through. It's an embarrassment because there's a lot of it and it's going to take me a while to get through to review all of that. I've also been sent 8 inks from Dominant Industry. I've got other things that I bought myself recently. A little Horizon Helvetica ruler pocket-sized sketching tool and various other things which I've purchased, which I think may be of interest. So it's going to be a busy few months. Right. Before I continue, health check. I have now lost the splint, and I think that the surgeon did a stunning job on my arm. Apparently there's no stitches and puckering of skin that you used to get with stitches or staples, because they've all reverted to using super glue now. I suppose they just found it easier to nip down to Molehaven or one of the other stores to buy a bucket load of super glue for all their patients. Who knows? I actually understand that super glue was originally designed during the Vietnam War to stitch up people on the battlefront very quickly. They could just glue a wound shut so that the poor devils had a certain amount of additional time when they are being shipped back to the MASH units for operations and so on. Don't know if that's true, but it's certainly what I was told. Anyway, this stuff seems to work nicely. My hand is improving. This little finger still doesn't quite sit flat, but that's just something that we'll have to be worked on with physio. Lots of physio. Right, so that's the health update for those who are interested. Let's get on with looking at these things, inks and stuff. And so here we are back at the writing desk once more. So, what have we got today? Well, I have spoken about Dominant Industries and their delightful inks. Very briefly, when you get a Dominant Industries ink, you get a delightful little bag. You get a very handy little pipette. And then on top of all that, you get a beautiful little bottle. Look at that, isn't it pretty? A gorgeous teardrop shape. It has got a flat bottom, so it will sit. It won't just slide straight off your desk or roll off your desk. But this is Lungo. Lungo? I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I think it's Lungo probably. It looks sort of like an Italian type of word. And I have already pre-filled my Pineda with it, so I can talk about it. So first of all, let's get my little book of ink demonstrations. And an excellent book which you really should have purchased and read by now, but this was my second book, what I wrote back in the 1990s. It's number 2 out of 32 in my Templar series of books, and a jolly good book it is too. So let's grab a bit of text here. Chapter 14, that looks good. So first of all, this is I will apologise, my hand, as I mentioned, is still not quite functioning as it should. It's getting better, but it's going to take at least another month before I've got full sensation back. So, let's just say right, so here we go with the first little test. And it is a very delightful colour. It has a slightly more honey colour than winter wood that I tested last time. Just move my light down to maximise the effect. It seems to have a mild amount of shading. But it is very mild. You can see that there's a straight flow of paler at the top of the L here in Hall. So at the top there it's paler, and then it gets darker and darker at the back end here. Usually if I do some vertical lines, it should show up a little bit better. This desk is set at about 15 to 20 degrees, so there should be enough of a slope for shading to show. What I would say is it's probably about the same as winter wood. There's a bit more shading perhaps visible in winter wood, but for my taste I think this sort of very dark honey colour with Lungo is more appealing on the eye. I rather like that. I've still got winter wood loaded in my Conway Stewart here. Let's just do some winter wood alongside it. And then you can see I think that is quite a lot darker. It's much more of a chocolate brown by which I mean a dark chocolate brown. This is milk chocolate, that's dark chocolate. No, this is... Yes, I'd say it's more of a honey sort of variant. And very appealing. Very nice. One thing that I was expecting was a little bit of shimmer or so, but I can't see any impact, which is strange because when I loaded up the ink, you can possibly see that there. There's a little bit of coppery, it's moved away again, but there was definitely coppery residue when I filled up my ink. When I filled the ink into my pen, rather. So I was expecting to get a little bit of a shimmering effect on it. I think there is a very faint shimmer, but it is very faint. I can hardly see that even with my glasses on. So I wouldn't call it a shimmering ink. So, there you go. Dominant Industry. Lungo, a really appealing package overall. I do love the way that they set up and package their inks. I think they do a superb job. I love these little teardrop bottles, and I have to admit I've not had a problem with filling pens or ink flow with any of their inks so far. I was asked last week, are their inks waterproof? And I did a quick test by licking my finger and running it over the ink. Winterwood clearly is not, and when I do it to... Nope, certainly isn't with Lungo either. But to be fair, I very much doubt any of my inks really are waterproof, because the more waterproof usually the less safe they are in an expensive pen, so I tend not to use them. Hope that was interesting. And now, a notebook. Thanks again to Dave McClure who sent me this. I seem to have splashed brown ink all over it. Hey ho, that's something that happens. So what can I say about this notebook? Well, it's got ink splatters. It's quite an appealing cover. It's got a strange sort of siliconized cover, which feels very nice. Feels sort of soft in the hand. It's stitched, machine stitched, which is good. On the back it tells me it's a Hilroy Journal and it was made in China. Well, I don't like things that are made in China. I would much prefer to buy something that was made in Vietnam or made in Japan or made in Germany. But I was sent this, I will review it. He also sent me these two ballpoint pens. Why did he send me some ballpoint pens? You know what I feel about pens that are ballpoints. Now, these things are rather nice, really. Good snap cap, very firm feel. It has got a workable clip, so you can put it on your shirt pocket or wherever. Shiny, smooth main barrel, but when you open it, this is sort of, not roughened, but it's a little bit textured, so you can feel it. Looks opaque, so you can't see right through it. Doesn't want to unscrew too easily, but it does if you give it a bit of welly. And inside we have just a standard ballpoint type of refill. And that's the pen, really. Quite straightforward. The only thing that's different about this is the top and the bottom are rubber. Oh, you're thinking, could that mean? And yes, it is an erasable ink. And they're really quite effective. And the nice thing is it's the top and the bottom of the pen. So you can rub things out with the pen whether you've got it capped, comme ça, because you've got the rubber there, eraser I should say for Americans, and if you don't write with it capped, you've got the rubber there. So it's all really very effective. And they've got these two different colours, which is nice. But let's just make sure of the other thing, which is because Dave said it was very good paper for fountain pens. So we have here Lungo, and then we've got Winter Wood down here. Okay, there we have some writing. Let's see what it looks like on the next page. Yeah, it does come through a bit. That, to be fair, is using two of my very gushiest pens. The ballpoints don't come through at all, which is what you'd expect. But that's really not terribly bad. That's quite impressive. Let's just see if I've got... Here we go. For those of you that like using fine-tipped pens, this is a Mangaka 0.2. which I use for sketching sometimes. And when we look at that, nothing comes through at all. You can just, I can just see a faint ghosting, but that's it. Absolutely no feathering or misbehaviour on this side of paper. So I'd be inclined to say that this is actually a good notebook for fountain pens, unless you're using really wet nibs with really wet inks. So just be aware of that if you're thinking about these notebooks. But in terms of feel, in terms of size, and in terms of really good stitching, not a bad product. Not a bad product at all. So there you have it. One nice new ink, Lungo from Dominant Industry. Gorgeous bottle, wonderful packaging, really well organised and everything, and a very lovely little ink. So that ink's going to be the first of the Dominant Industries that I use up, I think, out of the ones I've tested so far. So that's very good. Quite an interesting little notebook. Thanks a lot, Dave. And two really quite fascinating ballpoint pens, which I can see the use for them. It's not, I don't use ballpoints because they make my writing look even worse than it really is. Give me a fountain pen every time. But they're not bad. Not bad. I can see the use for things like that. Just don't write a cheque or anything that's going to be legal that might get rubbed out. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Hope that was worthwhile. Thanks for all the people who have sent messages about this flaming arm, especially those who sent cards, which were entirely unexpected, but thank you so much for that. And I'm going to go away and do a bit of physio weight training now, because that's the sort of exciting life I have. Take care. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Cheers.